I'm Ann Charles.
I'm Linda Quinlan.
That would make me Keith Goslant. And welcome to All Things LGBTQ. We are taping on Tuesday, April 7th. All Things LGBTQ is taped at Orca Media in Montpelier, Vermont, which we acknowledge is unceded Indigenous land. And with that, Ann's taking us to far and distant places to hear things we should hear but really don't want.
Well, let me start with the Gaza statement. It's a report that Israel has passed a mandatory death penalty for Palestinians convicted of terrorism, flouting international law and drawing widespread condemnation. On March 30th, lawmakers in Israel passed the death penalty for terrorists law by a vote of 62 to 48, making Israel one of the few democracies to expand capital punishment in recent years. The law mandates death by hanging for offenses classified as terrorism-related, and as written applies exclusively to Palestinians. The new law also requires that sentences must be carried out within 90 days of the final ruling. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which Israel ratified in 1991, according to that, mandatory death sentences are prohibited because they are inherently arbitrary. International law requires that death sentences must be reserved only for the most serious offenses, follow fair proceedings, and allow for consideration of pardon or commutation. Israel's new law, as the UN has noted, fails on all three counts. These experts also noted that that effectively singles out Palestinians for execution, conveying that Palestinian lives are less worthy of legal protection. It called on the Israeli Supreme Court to invalidate this manifestly unlawful legislation without delay before it gives rise to irreversible harm and further entrenches discrimination, arbitrariness, and cruel, inhuman, or degrading punishment against Palestinians. I join that call, but I have to note that this particular piece of legislation reflects the Israeli government's ongoing genocide in Gaza, ongoing genocide of Palestinians, for which the United States is complicit equally because it sends all its arms. This is occurring in my name, in our name, and it's genocide and it's deplorable. So that's the latest development that I'd like to share on that score. Now, speaking of the United Nations,
We still have one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They're doing another good thing besides condemning this. They rejected the U.S. efforts to erase trans women. An advocate accused the U.S. of blatant transphobia, but that's not what the advocate said, of being willing to lie to push forward their own gender ideology onto people in the UN system. Delegates at the UN's 70th Annual Commission on the Status of Women overwhelmingly voted against considering a proposal by the U.S. to adopt an anti-trans definition of gender. On March 19th, the final day of the 9-day conference, the U.S. introduced a resolution calling on member states to officially define gender as referring only to men and women. The resolution claimed that the landmark Beijing Declaration on Women's Rights in 1995 already defined gender as referring to men and women, which is, of course, totally not true. A letter from the Progressive Women's Rights Caucus circulated among delegates noted that the Commission did not adopt a specific definition of gender in 1995. It said that member states agreed to disagree on interpretations of the word. They were more comfortable with leaving the term open to interpretation than they were with any attempt at a shared definition, this representative said. Jennifer Rausch, Global Advocacy Officer at FOS Feminista, accused the U.S. of being willing to lie to push forward their own gender ideology. And this is just typical Trump playbook. They went in, they proposed this, they didn't talk to anybody about it, they thought they'd just impose it. The representative from Belgium said that the U.S. resolution was factually incorrect as it misquotes and contradicts the Fourth World Conference on Women's mandate and attempts to rewrite what was carefully agreed and reflected in Beijing almost 30 years ago. On behalf of 25 other member states, Belgium called for a no action motion to block the proposal. Pakistan and Chile were the only two member states to vote with the U.S. against the motion, with 23 countries voting to block the anti-trans proposal and 17 abstaining. Now, the abstention is sort of interesting because some of the 17 countries that abstained said they'd done so only because Trump did it the way Trump did it, because they abstained on procedural grounds. Italy's representative said that while they agreed with Belgium that the U.S. had failed to seek other member states' input and had not circulated the proposal until the last minute, the country agrees with the interpretation of gender as referring exclusively to male, female, and binary-based sex at birth. Still, the resolution failed, and the UN is holding the line.
Good.
More miserable world news. The Olympic Committee will force all women to undergo genetic testing as part of a new trans ban. The International Olympic Committee has officially banned transgender women from competing in women's Olympic events. The new policy also introduces mandatory genetic testing requirements for all female athletes, a move that human rights and sports advocacy organizers have strongly opposed. Eligibility for any female category event at the Olympic Games or any other IOC event, including individual and team sports, is now limited to biological females determined on the basis of a one-time SRY gene, which is the gene that initiates male sex determination. The IOC claims that it considers screening for the SRY gene typically found in the Y chromosome via saliva, cheek swab, or blood sample to be the most accurate and least intrusive method currently available to verify biological sex, but experts disagree, including Dr. Andrew Sinclair, the professor who first identified the SRY gene, who said that testing for the gene is an inadequate method of establishing biological sex. All it tells you is whether or not the gene is present. It does not tell you how SRY is functioning, whether a testes is formed, whether testosterone is produced, and if so, whether it can be used by the body, he wrote last August. Nevertheless, the IOC said that athletes will have to test negative for SRY gene to satisfy eligibility criteria for competition in the female category. In a statement, the IOC president claimed that it is absolutely clear that it would not be fair for biological males to compete in the female category, and that in some sports it would simply not be safe. Contrary to her statement, a recent systematic review of data published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine found that after 1 to 3 years of hormone therapy, trans and cis women have comparable levels of aesthetic fitness prior to Thursdays. And I mean, this has been coming for a long time. Outsports notes that calls to reinstate genetics testing in elite sports have increased exponentially in recent years following anti-trans controversies around the South African Olympic medalist Caster Semenya, who was born with differences in sex development, and transgender former University of Pennsylvania swimmer Leah Thomas. As Carly Webb writes for Outsports, world sports governing bodies that have not yet banned trans women are now likely to do so following the IOC's new policy. The IOC's decision is certain to contribute to pressure to ban trans women and girls at all sporting levels and to provide justification for legislative bans. Sickening. So now one more world news item that's unpleasant. Snookers, which is billiards, the governing body, has banned trans women from women's tournaments. Billiards.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
They outline that only people born biologically female are allowed to compete in women's events, making it the latest sports governing body to exclude trans athletes from participating. This comes a year after a contentious UK Supreme Court ruling which declared that the legal definition of a woman is confined to biological sex. The decision has been branded trans exclusionary. I think so. Now, the World Professional Billiards and Snooker Association is an exclusive organization for all players, irrespective of their biological sex, legal sex, and or gender identity. They may, this is what the organization says, they may compete in open tournaments. The new conditions mean that all players can participate in open tournaments. However, only biological female players may compete in women's tournaments. The policy also outlines new guidance for trans men. A trans man player who does not use testosterone as part of male gender-affirming treatment can compete in open and or women's tournaments. And this ruling came as an outcome of trans pool player Harriet Haynes' loss. Let's look at a picture of her. She sued for discrimination against the English Blackball Pool Federation. The World Billiard Group said they conducted a thorough review of its trans and gender diverse policy. Haynes lost her discrimination case after she was banned from women's competitions. The judge ruled exclusion was the only reasonable way to ensure fair competition. In addition, Haynes said she received vile and horrific abuses online, which ramped up after a player, Lynn Pinch, refused to play her in the women's championship tournament. Miserable.
You know, and like, if you wanted to make the argument that men are stronger, pool?
Billiard, I know.
You know?
Darts and bowling are next, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh my God. So anyway, Ann, you're done for now.
I'm
That's
done,
okay.
all right. That's enough for me.
You're done for now. All right. So, at the top of the hour, if we're still around after 8 o'clock and you get to see this, let me just say, an anti-LGBTQ plus Christian author who has fathered 10 children was recently indicted on multiple charges of sex abuse in Greene County, Ohio. A court indicted 55-year-old John Kent Tarwater on 2 counts of rape, 3 counts of sexual battery, and 3 counts of gross sexual imposition that allegedly took place between 2019 and last July. One of the victims was reportedly 10 years old, and the other was 13. Tarwater authored numerous articles on Christian ethics, including Does Sexual Self-Gratification Glorify God? Business Ethics in the Marketplace, Exploring Transgenderism, as well as a 2005 novel, Marriage and Covenant, Considering God's Design at Creation and the Contemporary Moral Consequences, in which he wrote about feminist and homosexual attacks on the standards of sexual moral behavior. In a morning letter to her son on his 2nd birthday, queer WNBA star Chelsea Gray expressed her hopes and dreams for a future that is more open-minded than the one she grew up in. In the letter published in the Players Tribute, she said she hoped that one day when her son Lennox reads this letter, he'll be surprised to find out that it wasn't always easy to be yourself for people like me and his mama. The letter detailed Gray's love story with Lennox's other mom, Tipessa Gray, and how she had to navigate her burgeoning career while trying to figure out whether it was safe to be out. And here's a picture of mom and baby, son. The Colorado legislature is considering a bill to allow conversion therapy providers to sue and would allow people who have been harmed by conversion therapy to sue therapists who tried to change their sexual orientation or gender identity to seek damages in civil suits. They could also sue the facilities that employed the conversion therapists.
Well, Linda, I think that's been brought to the Supreme Court.
Has it already?
Yes, and I think he's going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay, well, that's
Well,
good.
because
It'll be a segue.
Well, no, because part of the Supreme Court's ruling is saying you still have the right to file a,
Suit. The black lesbian poet and activist who preached intersectionality before the world even existed, Pat Parker, remember we went there?
Oh, yes.
Wrote about the negotiations required to survive in a society that really recognized the complexity of black women's lives. Pat Parker believes poetry should tell the truth, even when it made audiences uncomfortable. The black lesbian poet who emerged during the upheavals of the civil rights era wrote about racism, violence against women, lesbian identity, and symptoms of power shaping everyday life in the United States. Long before the language of intersectionality entered mainstream politics, Parker's work insisted that race, gender, sexuality, and class could not be separated. The reality she wrote about decades ago remains strikingly relevant today as women's rights and LGBT rights protections once again sit at the center of American political conflict.
May I add something?
Yes?
I interviewed, let me call your attention, viewers, to my interview with Sarah Ellen Strongman, who put out a recent edition of Parker's poetry that has been nominated for a Publishing Triangle Award.
Good. Tucker Kemp, a 31-year-old Republican funeral home worker who lost his job after attacking a pride flag at Starbucks Coffee House in St. Petersburg, Florida, struck a pretrial intervention agreement to avoid a criminal mischief conviction. He will have to provide community service, take anger management classes, and pay the cost of damages for his public meltdown. Kemp made national headlines last October when he told the Starbucks manager that he found the cafe's pride flag offensive and that it should be replaced by an American flag. The manager refused to redecorate, so Kemp, according to the arrest affidavit, decided to take matters into his own hands by throwing his tea at the flag, ripping it off the wall, and putting it in the trash can. Oh boy, I'm telling you. And Pam Bondi's tenure as nation's Attorney General has ended, but in less than 14 months as America's top law enforcement official, the Republicans waged a comprehensive campaign against LGBTQ plus equality on behalf of President Trump. A fundraiser for Tennessee librarian, we talked about her last week. She refused to take the books off the shelf and she was fired. So now on Facebook, people have raised more than $120,000 to give to her after being fired. So that's good. A South Carolina man has been charged under local hate crime ordinance after authorities say he fired multiple shots into a well-known LGBTQ nightclub in Myrtle Beach. Timothy James Truitt, 37, was arrested Thursday and charged with assault or intimidation based on political opinions or the exercise of civil rights, possession of a weapon during a violent crime, and discharging a firearm into a dwelling, Myrtle Police told the outlet. So, and for my last story for now, and I'll move to Keith, transgender military community gathers to honor its own as Trump banned grinds forward. At a Washington dinner honoring transgender service members and allies with the Albert Cashier Awards, the mood was defiant, grieving, and somewhat joyful. And here is a picture of that group having a good time. So,
All right. So I already told Ann and Linda that I was halfway here when I realized I hadn't a trivia question, so I'll have to have two for next time. But what I might put out there is to Ann, happy Dinkus Day.
Thank you.
And
I know what that
you will
is now.
You will have to stay tuned to figure out what that is. So looking at events, there was an event I was just going to report on that is becoming a news story, and it's the Essex Community Players. And they were going to do a series of performances from April 17th to May 2nd, the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday matinee of Rocky Horror Picture Show. But all of a sudden, there was a notice posted that said, we have received a few questions about the unforeseen circumstances we mentioned regarding the cancellation of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Just to clarify, threats were made against our production that we are currently under investigation by the Essex Police Department. We hope for a swift resolution. In the meantime, a joint decision was made by the production team and the board that to ensure the safety of everyone concerned, we could not proceed with the production. We are extremely saddened by this turn of events. Our theater community must remain vibrant, inclusive, and above all, joyful. And because this is an active investigation, there's no additional information that's available. So, moving on, Rainbow Umbrella Book Discussion Group. Have you moved on from A Woman's Madness?
No, we keep postponing.
You're still mad?
Well, people can have conflicting schedules and, you
We
know.
had to cancel, and yeah, okay.
You've got a chance. Okay, the Women's Discussion Group, you talked about Toni Morrison, and that was an interesting overview of a man of color first hosting, and there were no women of color who were part of the panel. And then you're talking about Bella Abzug.
That's right.
I hope you all wore hats for the occasion.
Well, you know, there's this new documentary that her daughter put
Exactly.
together, so it's in that honor. We couldn't watch it because I think it's on PBS, and we don't have subscriptions.
Oh,
But
But if you do, you can.
well, I was going to say I have Passport. Okay, but what's coming up after Bella? Have you decided?
we haven't met yet.
Okay.
I have some ideas.
Ann always has ideas, but it's Linda's ideas you have to watch out for. Speaking of Linda's idea,
Yeah.
LGBTQ Story Hour is Tuesday, April 21st.
That
It
is
needed
correct.
to be
Come out
made.
and tell a story, please.
All righty. So this is a save the date for Saturday, May 9th, 3 to 8 p.m. at Sunrise in Burlington, Outright Vermont's Queer Prom. And they're looking for volunteers to come help put the prom on, or if you're a youth, look on the Outright website, how you get information for tickets, etc. And while you're at there, look for, they're doing the registrations for camp this summer. So be looking for that. Another save the date is Mosaic, Sexual Violence Program in Barrie. April is Sexual Violence Awareness Month. And usually, and probably before the end of the month, I will share statistics about the impact on our community, which we experience sexual violence at a higher rate than the general population. But on Wednesday, April 29th, is Denim Day. You wear denim in public as a sign of support for survivors and an opposition of we have to fight ongoing sexual violence.
And that could be jeans.
That's what denims are.
All right.
Okay, denim jacket, hat, go for broke. And also for a save the date, Saturday, May 16th at the State House is March to End Violence. This is what had formerly been known as Take Back the Night. And community gathering starts at 11. There's an opening ceremony at 1, and then a march through Montpelier at 2 o'clock. So, Fox Market, go on their website because they always put out their newsletter after we've taped, and but they're doing their Irish session on Saturday, April 25th at 2 p.m.
At the original store.
in East Montpelier. Well, Foxy's and Buried has closed.
I know.
So these are things opening up. Summer is coming.
Yes, finally. Although it snowed today.
Yeah. I didn't say how quickly summer is coming. Okay, so first one of Linda's favorite events, second Saturday in June, might be Montpelier's World Naked Bike Ride. Linda's out there with her camera, cheering them on. Frog Meadow, starting on April 3rd, they were doing the final work camp cleanup. They opened for the season April 21st. And in their newsletter, they said they're already filling up for the summer. Their retreats are booked, but if you see a retreat of interest, it may be repeated in the fall, but you're going to want to sign up for it now.
And I want to say one of the things in Montpelier that's really exciting is Red Hen opening.
Yes, Red Hen Bakery, May 1st.
On Main Street where Rabble Rouser was.
That's right, open till 5.
The other thing opening up on May 1st is the Vermont Freedom Campground.
All right.
They have more activities going on this summer, including, and it's people who have permanent spots there and people who are regular visitors. There is going to be a specific lesbian gathering weekend that's being organized. So keep track of that. The other biggie, before I turn it back over to Ann to depress us, 2-day event. April 15th and 16th at Millstone Hill in Websterville. This may be the 2026 Queer Arts Festival. And they are looking for vendors. You can submit your application now, and that they will let you know, I believe, by May 18th. People will get final notice of, if there is a spot for you, if you're on the waiting list, whatever. And the application period is open until to May 3rd. And they also said, save the date, Saturday, December 12th is the Winter Queer Arts Festival, so get it on your calendar. Maybe we could get an application in now for the winter one.
Maybe.
So I'm going to hand it back to you.
Okay, let's go to Australia. A couple of good items.
Oh, well, in that case.
Let's look at a picture of Lee Renswick, who makes history as the first AFL player to come out as gay. He is, however, I don't mean to cast aspersions on it, but he's retired. So he followed in the footsteps of Mitch Brown, who came out as bisexual last year also after he retired. So there's yet to be an active AFL player to come out as LGBTQ+, but Renswick believes that whoever does it will receive massive support. I hope so. Now, staying in Australia, let's look at the world's biggest trans flag, which has been unfurled. It stands for Our Resistance and Triumphs. A group of trans.
It's the biggest?
What's? Well, I'll tell you, it's been measured. It's over 8,400 square feet.
Oh my gosh.
Of white, pink, and light blue stripes. It was unfurled in the Brisbane suburb of West End to honor Trans Day of Visibility.
That's bigger than most studio apartments.
There will be people, though, if they do listen to this, it will be the first time they know about this, and I'm a very private person. It's not, oh, I'm sorry. That's the AFL, the Australian
Coming
footballer.
out, yeah.
Oh, sorry. All right, so residents built the giant flag in view of a high school where the board had banned it. All transgender, trans and gender diverse people deserve the things we need to have good lives, like access to secure housing, proper health care, and good jobs, the group behind the flag said. It was inspired by previous giant flags flown in the U.S., Linda, such as the 200-foot-long flag raised in Utah last year and a 55 by 35-foot flag in Yosemite National Park, so this is bigger. 30 people came together to sew the giant flag, and it took them 10 days to complete the project. The final project weighs heaps, and took a lot of people to move it around. So now let's go to Europe, and I'd like to show you a clip of a film that I just loved. And I haven't shown it because we've seen it. The three of us actually have seen it, but it was recently praised by Sarah Schulman on her Facebook page. It's BPM. Currently, you're about to watch BPM. Nathan is a young man who joins an AIDS activist group in 1990s Paris. As he attends the weekly meetings, he learns that some members prefer a more radical approach to their protests. This was released in France in 2017. Let's look at a clip of it.
T'as du sang sur les mains. Mais ça va pas, non. C'est pas comme ça vous connaissez arabe. C'est quoi cette connerie? L'heure du contre le sida. L'heure du contre le sida.
On est Acte Paris.
Nous sommes venus vous donner un cours de prévention sur le sida parce que l'État français est incapable de nous informer. Ce qui m'intéresse, c'est que l'État sache qu'on le fera chier tant qu'il n'y aura pas une vraie politique de prévention. Rien sur les PD, rien sur les toxicos, rien sur les personnes les plus touchées par cette épidémie.
Ados en danger.
Protégez-vous.
Je prends pas ça, moi.
Ça va pas dire des trucs comme ça?
Je risque pas de choper votre connerie de sida, hein, en attendant.
T'as quel âge?
16 ans. Je me fais contaminer la première fois.
Il y a des moments où je m'aperçois à quel point le sida, ça a changé ma vie. C'est comme si je vivais plus intensément les choses. Plus de couleurs, plus de bruit, plus de vie.
Pourtant nos amis meurent. Mais nous ne voulons pas mourir. Nous vivons le sida comme une guerre. Rejoignez-nous.
Soit on est mort, soit on est vivant.
Could you show it again?
It was the powerful.
It really is powerful. You can watch it on Fubo TV and for free with ads on Pluto TV. It's also possible to rent it on Fandango at Home, Amazon Video Online, and to download it on Fandango at Home, Amazon Video. It's really powerful.
Yep.
Good news. Romania recognizes a man's gender identity in a landmark victory for trans Europeans. So let's look at a picture of Arian Muzrafi Ahi. He was born in Romania. He's joint Romanian-British citizen. So the case concerned, he had Romanian and British citizenship. He was born in Romania, moved to the UK in 2018, where he began his transition. After obtaining legal documentation in the UK in 2020, the Romanian government declined to recognize his gender identity, citing a disparity with the Romanian documents. This put him in a position of having two sets of documents. So he was a man in one country and a woman in another. So the Romanian court finally granted his transgender identity, and this follows the ruling in Poland because the EU said you had to do it. And so the Romanian government denied his petition once, but now under pressure from the EU, they've granted it. Romania, one of the most illiberal members of the EU when it comes to LGBTQ rights, sits at the bottom of the ILGA EU state ratings. It resisted the order with 2 different government agencies refusing to recognize his identity, but now they have. So, good news. Same-sex marriage and adoption is upheld in a Greek majority ruling. The Orthodox Church brought suit and tried to repeal adoption rights and same-sex marriage rights, and the Greek government said no, no, no. They dismissed these petitions. Miserable news from the UK. Girl Guiding, which is like the UK version of the Girl Scouts, gives trans girls and women until September to leave the organization. They say they're following this awful law that was passed. Girl Guiding volunteer Lily, 28, said many people were feeling devastation at the news, and a number were talking about resigning from their roles. More British news. Pride in London. The boss was sacked for allegedly spending vouchers meant for volunteers. Let's look at a picture of him. Christopher Joel de Shields. He had served as executive director from 2021, but he was suspended and sacked after an independent inquiry. He was paid a salary of £87,500 while he was suspended, but he is no longer employed by Pride of London.
The Pride in London has had problems repeatedly, from your reporting.
Exactly. And now there's, more London trouble. The Metropolitan Police is facing an investigation over mishandling of the death of a student found in a hotel with older men. This was 2021. Let's look at a picture of the victim, Edward Corness, who was 19, and this was his first semester at University College London. And the post-mortem said that he had drugs, and they didn't look into it further, and so the family have alleged homophobic attitudes during the investigation and inquest, including offensive characterizations made about the teenager. His family says they hope the investigation will finally provide answers and accountability amid ongoing concerns about how LGBTQ plus victims are treated by the police.
Okay, we have time for one more story, and then you have to...
Oh my gosh, because I just have 3.
One more. Quick, quick, quick.
All right.
Like a bunny.
The Japanese Supreme Court is going to consider marriage equality. All 15 of the court's justices will consider the case. It's the only G7 country that does not legally recognize same-sex couples, despite several court rulings in recent years that found the denial of marriage benefits to gays and lesbians is unconstitutional. The Prime Minister opposes it. And as we know, same-sex couples can legally marry in Taiwan, Nepal, and Thailand. The Supreme Court is expected to issue its ruling in early 2027.
All right. You're done.
I have these 2 interesting stories, but they're kind of bleak, actually.
Well, maybe we'll have time, maybe we won't.
Okay.
Okay? If not, you'll have to keep them.
Okay.
In Boston, the Boston Theater Company's 4th annual Road of Rainbows Pride 5K kicks off on Saturday, June 8th at 10, before the Pride Parade steps off. According to event organizers, a blend of arts and athletics, the race is an all-inclusive celebration of Boston Common and will occur before the Pride Parade. So that'll be fun. I'm not going in it, but... or on those naked bike rides either. After an outcry from facility and free speech advocates, Boston University President Melissa Gillian apologized for the recent removal of pride flags from public display on campus and announced a pause to the policy behind their removal.
That's good to hear.
I am deeply sorry, Gillian wrote on
She should
Monday
be.
email to students and staff. In the public conversation about Boston University's time, place, and manner policies, that spotlight has fallen disproportionately on the LGBTQIA plus community. And I've heard how difficult and painful that has been.
So is she going to put it back, or they're just going to pause the policy?
Going to pause the policy and put them back, at least for now. President Trump told Turning Point USA CEO Erica Kirk, the widow of slain anti-trans mega influencer Charlie Kirk, to sue Drew Desbordes, a.k.a. Drewski, a comedian whose video skit, How Conservative Women in America Act, went viral for brutally mocking Erica Kirk.
So did she sue then?
I don't know yet. I think the video is a must-see if we can find
I
it.
was going to say, and we're probably going to have to wait and see what Alliance Defending Freedom decides to do.
I know. Outsports power couple soccer star Megan Rapinoe and former WNBA player Susan Bird, both Olympic gold medalists, slammed the International Olympic Committee for the new genetic gender testing policy, which you were talking about.
Right.
Yep.
As well they should.
And, you know, they will use the SRY gene testing. Mm-hmm. The two athletes framed this as a political move, capitulating to Donald Trump and damaging participation in women's sports and hurting the trans community.
Absolutely.
So good for them.
He's doing so much damage in the world. He and his hench people.
Really. Now, this is interesting. When Katie Faust was 10 years old, her mom and dad divorced. After that, her mother began a relationship with another woman. She is the new influencer coming for gay marriage. Faust says she loves her mom, but it may surprise you to learn that she's now at the helm of the Greater Than campaign, a new coalition of at least 47 anti-LGBT groups fighting to overturn gay marriage.
Oh,
Faust and her companion argue that children are victims when raised by gay couples. In the premiere episode of Uncloseted with Spencer McNaughton, Faust speaks about her campaign, her motivations, both professional and personal, and why she believes her efforts are the right-wing boogeyman LGBTQ media has long feared. So,
oh God.
I know. And now there's a queer erotic thriller called Night Stage, and it's an exploration of men who like to have sex in public. So, here's the clip.
Meu nome é Matias, eu tenho 23 anos.
Por que quer fazer TV? Se tá dando tão certo no teatro.
Foi o que salvou a minha vida.
Tu não é daqui, né? Tu faz muito isso?
Prefiro conhecer alguém em festa, mas é bom variar.
Eu sou uma variação. Tem que ouvir as expectativas.
E se souberem que tu tá com um cara no andar de cima? Isso vai estar dentro das expectativas deles? A gente tá cometendo um crime, então.
What do you think of that?
Wow, my.
The data.
I don't know how she finds these.
The data released by the Bureau yesterday is a draw from the American Community Survey and shows same-sex households account for about 1% of all U.S. households, reflecting steady growth over the past 2 decades. 0.6% reported being married, while 0.4% were unmarried households. The shift marks a reversal from 2005, when male same-sex households were more common. Since then, female same-sex marriages have more than doubled, contributing significantly to the female same-sex marriages. Let's see. The report also highlights demographics and economic trends. Married same-sex couples are more likely to both be employed when compared to married couples, opposite-sex couples, and were more likely to have higher levels of education compared to unmarried opposite-sex couples, while interracial relationships are also more common among same-sex marriages. So,
I want to build off the statement that Ann had done at the beginning of the show about our being complicit with Gaza. We are complicit here with ICE and the actions of ICE and the unconstitutional things that they have been doing, which we saw up close and in person on March 11th here in South Burlington.
and I just read at the airport where ICE is, they grabbed 500 people.
Which airport?
All various airports around.
Doing the TSA
Yeah.
checks
Oh my
and
God.
helping
Yeah,
with
500
to
people.
cover for the air traffic controllers. And again, we're going to put up the, if you see something, please call Migrant Justice. And what I want to build off that is one of the messages going out was a request to people about, it looks as though there is more activity happening in both Franklin and Lamoille counties with ICE. A greater presence. They're seen about communities more often. And as I had mentioned when we were talking before we started taping, Cambridge, which is in that area, is where ICE went into the convenience store and took people into custody. They knew the van, they knew the registration, they knew where they were going to be stopping and when. So, and associated with that, the elders have been doing demonstrations in front of the facilities in Williston, which are surveillance facilities. And Migrant Justice was part of one of the most recent demonstrations that made the comment of, you don't know what they're doing in here and the information they're gathering and how they intend on using that.
Right.
Looking at the March 11th and what happened, there were 2 radically different public hearings, one with law enforcement and one with protesters and demonstrators. Senator Tanya Wachowski has proposed a joint resolution calling for an independent investigation of what happened. What I want to put out to people is, if you were there, if you participated, if you believe this is important issues, please contact people saying, yes, we want an independent evaluation. We should be looking at what was done in our name.
Contact who?
Well, no. That will be part of, if there is an independent, you need to contact your senators
Oh, okay.
to say, yes, we want the independent evaluation. And when that entity is identified, everyone has their cell phones. Everyone had video. People were sharing the video with public media. They were sharing it on social media. What they were not doing is filing a formal complaint with public safety with the video. And until whoever is the authorized agent gets your video, it doesn't count.
So contact your state senator.
Contact her. Tanya is a Chittenden County senator here. She is on the Judiciary Committee. She sat through both of the hearings.
Our own.
Contact your senators saying, please support this.
Okay.
And so, but moving on with that, there are a number of other things that are happening within our legislature. There was a $200,000 appropriation that was put into the House budget for immigration legal representation. And if you looked at what happened with the March 11th event, they were there, they were advocating, they were in the court, and all three of them got released. And I hope, and this is even more critical because I hope people noticed that in the follow-up reporting on ICE going to get the warrant, they lied, they knew they were lying, they knew the person that they were after was not in the van and not in the household, but they used his name because they could get the criminal warrant based upon his information. They lied in the process, they knew they were lying, but they did not tell Vermont law enforcement what they were doing, which leads us into, and again, this is a call your senators, because it's in the Senate right now, H.849, a Constitutional Accountability Act. If the feds knowingly do something that's a violation of your constitutional rights, they can be held accountable. The other is looking at what, and I'm looking at the time, I'm not going to get to our Supreme Court discussion because there's a number of, I will do it on the next show, I promise. But looking at what the people who were there demonstrating said, you want to have House Judiciary pass out and the House to support S-208. This is the bill that would require law enforcement, all law enforcement, to be clearly identified. ICE can't just wander in among Vermont State Police in South Burlington with a simple police insignia so they won't be noticed. It has to clearly say law enforcement, the branch you're with, and it has to have your name on it. The other is S-209. This is what would prohibit civil arrest in sensitive areas, such as going into a church, going into a school, going into a post office, going in where you're applying for benefits. You know, it would restrict where they are allowed to do those things. And the other bill that's up for consideration in the House is S-222. This is establishing immigration protocols in our public schools. There are people who are not taking their children to school because they're afraid of, you're going to take my child to try and get me to come out so that you can then take me. So
it's a mess.
Well, and I mean, we had talked about it before. One of the things that has happened is that they're using Border Patrol for ICE operations. Border Patrol are not trained for this type of action. And in fact, the people that are being hired by ICE, they're looking for people with law enforcement backgrounds. One of the comments that I heard, but I haven't been able to truly verify, is they don't care if you might have some kind of record, but it had been the practice that both Border Patrol and ICE had a minimum of 6 months worth of training. They now only get 6 weeks worth of training, and there is an indication that there is no de-escalation protocols that are in place. And really quickly, one of the things about looking at Vermont law enforcement and really pushing through some strong language is that there was another Supreme Court case that came down, and it was based on a 2015 suit with Vermont law enforcement who took a demonstrator into custody during Peter Shumlin's inauguration, and there was a belief that the officer had used excessive force because it was a passive resistance. The Supreme Court, breaking on the lines we would expect, upheld law enforcement so that
The U.S. Supreme Court.
U.S. Supreme Court, so Sotomayor's dissenting opinion said, you just now said that law enforcement cannot be held accountable for excessive force, even if the officer is not being threatened or assaultive, or you are engaging in passive resistance. So we need to keep track. And with that, I think we're kind of...
We're done.
We're down to the wire.
All righty.
Damn.
Everybody, remember, especially, who knows what's going to happen at 8 o'clock. But anyway, as long as we can, with whatever energy we have, remember to
Resist.